Good evening. Welcome to 30 Letters in 30 Days. Just want to remind everybody that you can print out the PDF so you could have the exact same printout that I am using over here. Go to 30letters30days.com, and there you'll find all sorts of different resources for this course, including the archives. So if you haven't been able to keep up with a letter a day, you can catch up, and that's what double speed was created for. We're on letter number 16, which means that we are in the second half. We're already past the midpoint. Things are heating up. Shabbos Mevorchim Chodesh Nissan already was, and we're in the home stretch. Tonight's letter is a short letter, short comparative to some of the letters that we've had recently, but a very interesting letter. There's no big drama. Nobody here involved in this letter is, as to my knowledge, is a famous person or a person of global influence, and at least not in the conventional sense. But there's a lot here, as there is in every letter of the Rebbe. Baruch Hashem Tes Zayin Adar Sheni Tavshin Yud Tes Brooklyn Shalom Uvracha. By the grace of God, the 16th day of Adar Sheni. That means this is not the day after Purim, but it's the day after. The day after Purim is called Shushan Purim. So this is the day after Shushan Purim. Brooklyn, greetings and blessings. The Rebbe is writing to a man. And what do I know about this man? Well, he's a teacher. I'm suspecting from context, some of the things makes me think, not in a Chabad yeshiva. He seems to be dealing with students who are not necessarily from religious backgrounds, or at least not fully religious backgrounds. But you'll understand as we start reading. Okay, but B'mayna l'michtave me'erev Purim. Wow, fast turnaround. The Rebbe says, in response to your letter from Erev Purim. So this is 3 days later. Mitzeref elav michtav achas ha'imohes me hatalmidim asher b'ktase. Also, in your letter, you enclosed a letter from one of the mothers of one of the students in your class. Okay, so you know that there was a time when people wrote letters. I know now people write texts, but the mother wrote the teacher a letter, and the teacher wrote the Rebbe a letter. And in the letter that the teacher wrote to the Rebbe, the teacher included the letter that he got from the mother, and basically was asking the Rebbe, what do I do with this? How do I respond to this? This is a mother of one of the kids in my class. So the Rebbe is giving him guidance about that. Okay, so you enclose that letter. V'toichna, its toichen, its content is what? The Rebbe summarizes it as shechesheshes lahadosiyes shel b'nah sheyichya. She's concerned about the religious observance, the religious habits of her son. In other words, she thinks her son's a little bit too verfrumpt, verchanyokt, a little too zealous, if you know what I mean. Asher lefi havanasa, that according to her understanding of things, hu yeser medai, he's overly religious. Umashpia al briyusei shaloi karatzei, and what's more, it's having a bad effect on his health. What does it mean it's having a bad effect on his health? Because the mother could be nervous about the son being too religious, and it could have nothing to do with health. But in this case, it actually does. And in fact, the Rebbe says that it's a legitimate complaint. We're going to read what the connection is between this boy's religious observance and his health. And we're going to read that the Rebbe says she's got a point. She's got a point. Okay. Moving. It's understood. That there's a part of her letter, Kavonasi, what am I talking about? I'm referring to where she mentions that her son doesn't participate in the games that his friends are playing. And he doesn't partake in their outings. He refrains from it. Tzedek is he. She's right about that. In other words, the woman made some comments about her son's religious observance. The Rebbe is not mentioning what all of the points were, and the Rebbe is not mentioning if they're valid or not, although you can sort of infer that the Rebbe is implying here that since the Rebbe says this one point was valid, maybe the other points were not so valid. That's what I'm picking up. But at any rate, the Rebbe says she makes one point, which I agree with, which is valid, and that is, she says that his religiosity, at least the way that this boy understands religiosity, is preventing him, or he's preventing himself from playing games, playing sports. Maybe he doesn't think it's befitting a young, serious Torah scholar. And the mother is worried. She says this is not good for his health. And she complains to the teacher. Now the teacher is turning around and saying to the Rebbe, help, this mother's complaining to me. What do I do? So the Rebbe says she got a point over there. Shahare. Because, listen, I'll tell you why she's got a point. Haguf tzarech liyeh body v'shalim. The body has to be healthy and intact. Bichdei sheyuchal laved as Hashem k'deboy, in order to be able to serve Hashem properly. Re'eh, the Rebbe says, go see, what is the source? Rambam Hilchos Deis, Seif Perek Gimel, Uresh Perek Daled. The Rebbe would often quote this Rambam from Hilchos Deis, where the Rambam speaks about various different modes of proper conduct, the way a person ought to live. And the Rambam, of course, as a physician, dedicates much of this section to outlining practices which are conducive to bodily health. And there's a line that Rambam says there in the beginning of chapter 4, Liyes haguf body, Mireshis darke avedis Hashem, the service of Hashem. I should actually mention darke avedis Hashem. That is the Rebbe's addition, the ways of the service of Hashem. There are some versions which read that to have a healthy body is one of the ways of Hashem. And the Rebbe actually adds the word avodas Hashem. So to have a healthy body is one of the ways of service of Hashem. So the Rebbe says she's right. Mom's got a point. The Rambam agrees with her. You have to have a healthy body. Ubefrat al pi piskum Rava Magid Mimezrich, and we're not only quoting the Rambam here, although the Rambam is enough, but we have a nice quote from the Rava Magid. That's the successor and chief disciple of the Baal Shem Tov. Famous quote from the Magid that nekiv cotton baguf eis nekiv godel ba neshama, or the way that I believe it was originally said, because it was orally transmitted, was in Yiddish, as a kleine loch in guf can machen a greisen loch in der neshama. A small hole in the body, can make a big hole in the soul. And the background of this, of course, was that the Maggid had a son, Rebbe Avram, who was called the Malach, the angel, because he was angelic, because he was more into the spiritual worlds than this physical world, to the extent that he unfortunately neglected tending to his physical vessel. And his father, the Maggid, actually warned him about it. And nonetheless, he passed away at a fairly young age. That's why when his Chavrusa, the Alter Rebbe, named a child after Avram, he named him Chaim Avraham, because it should be V'chai Bahem. He should be like Avram the Malach, but he should be a Chaim Avram. He should actually be able to live in this world. At any rate, so this is a well-known saying of the Maggid, which basically means it's very important to look after your health, not as an end in and of itself, but rather because it is essential to the service of Hashem. That if you don't take care of the body, then your soul is not going to be able to do what it needs to do in order to serve Hashem. So, this mother is backed up by the Rambam and by the Mizritcher Maggid. Yeah. Now, who says that he's got to play? Who says he's got to go participate in their sports and their hikes and whatever it is that they're doing? So the Rebbe makes a very interesting observation. We see with the youth of America, it's very interesting that something that is a function of the body, I mean, I guess it shouldn't surprise me that much, but it did, and I'm still sort of processing it. Something that's a function of the body would differ depending on the cultural setting. You know, you would think a body is a body. If that's the way that people did things and it was healthy for them back in the Altaheim, so why should it be so different in America? But the Rebbe says it is different, and that we see that in America, or the youth at least in America, mishanim Memasha hurglu, when they change from their habit, b'mash negeya lahaguf, anything that pertains to the body, harizeh mashpia al matzav huatzabim shalahem v'chulu. This has an effect. The Rebbe never uses negative words, or hardly ever uses negative words. So the Rebbe just says it has an effect on their nerves. But obviously the Rebbe is saying it has a negative effect on their nerves. A very interesting observation here. Of course, the idea that changing one's habits can be disruptive to the balance, the equilibrium of the person. There's that's a well-known Maimer Chazal that shinoi vesis tchilas hacheli, that changing one's habits, changing one's their schedule when it comes to physical things can bring the onset of a physical illness. It's actually interesting. The source for there's a Gemara in Nidorim speaks about when children are on Shabbos, that they shouldn't be introduced to new material, because on Shabbos they eat differently than on the week, and so you have to take it easy on them. So there is such a concept in Chazal. Perhaps the Rebbe is saying, but especially with the youth in America, and maybe it just means that we're a weaker generation, Yeridas Hadoros and all of that. I'm not sure. The Rebbe doesn't explain why this is the case. He just points to this as a phenomenon that the youth in America, if they change their habits, if they change their routine, it's not good for them as far as their call it their mood regulation. So, and the Rebbe is concerned about that. So he's saying basically to this teacher that the mother's got a point. If this kid used to go out and play basketball at recess, I don't know if he played basketball, I don't know. For all I know. I don't know. Maybe they're playing tag. I have no idea. But the point is, if he used to do that, and now for whatever reasons, he's refraining from that, and the mother's saying she's worried about his health, the Rebbe's saying, yeah, that actually could be a concern, not just because of the importance of exercise, which seems to be what the Rebbe was implying by quoting the Rambam, but then also a second point, which compounds this, which is that it could cause him to become disordered as far as his mood and his emotional well-being. So she's right. So Mom is right. Okay. ובפרט שלפי דעתי, באם תראה האם שמהישיבה השפיעו על בנו, שיעשה יסר שמח וישתתף עם בני גילוי בעניינים של נפש. The Rebbe says, particularly, in my opinion, it's important that if the mother will see how the yeshiva is the one who is pushing to improve her son's happiness and influence him to partake in outings with his peers. And the Rebbe says, Kamuvan, obviously, my printer's low on ink. Come on. These are just the realities over here. Okay. Obviously, in keeping with the ways of Torah. So the Rebbe makes another point. She's right. The mother's right. And if the yeshiva will be the one who is like sort of the hero to come in and save the day, this will be really good. Because remember, the mother's nervous that the kid is becoming too religious. And we want to calm her down. We want to give her good feelings. So let's have the yeshiva be the one who comes in and gives Mom what she wants. Because this is something that the yeshiva can very happily give her, because it's something that's in line with Torah values, like we said, from the Rambam and from the Maggid. So this is something that we would be glad to grant her wishes, because this is what Torah wants as well. So it would be a good thing as far as this mother who is nervous about her child's religious involvement. Another further point. The mother should see that the ones who are pushing for the boy to play sports with his friends should specifically be the same teachers who are teaching him Torah. I'm assuming that this school, especially the way this letter sounds, was not all Lumad Kodesh. They had, it sounds like, general studies there. So if you would have had a secular studies teacher be the one to push for physical activity, it's you're kind of wasting an opportunity to make a Kiddush Hashem. Rather, it should be the teacher, and it sounds like this teacher writing to the Rebbe is that teacher, that the same one who's teaching the kids Torah should be the one who's sort of the hero who says to the mom, you know what, you're 100% right. You got to make sure that, we got to make sure, we're going to make sure we're going to get your kid to play sports again and to have fun during recess with his friends and run around and be healthy, like a good red-blooded American boy. You're 100% right. Okay. Loirak shtaskim al hadasye shalei kisignayna ala she'ed teisef mitzida. And it's an interesting point that Rebbe makes, that not only will she then agree to her son's, the Rebbe doesn't seem to like this word. He's quoting her, the dosius, the religiosity. I'm assuming this took place in America. See, just from the time, it was an Erev Purim letter, and that I was writing back 3 days later. I'm assuming it was not only America. I bet you it was New York, maybe even Brooklyn. So I don't think that the mother was writing in Hebrew. I don't think there were very many mothers who were worried their kid was becoming too frum, who were writing in Hebrew. I'm assuming I'm just doing a little Sherlock Holmes over here. I'm assuming the mother wrote in English, so I don't think dosius was the word. It was probably religious. But the Rebbe says, if you, meaning the teacher, can be the guy who steps up and facilitates that her son should get some exercise, which is something we have no problem with, al pi Torah. To the contrary, Torah wants the kid to exercise. So then this will help that not only she should agree to her son being religious, and then the Rebbe says, I don't really like that word. That's really her word. I'm just using her word. But if we'll give her what she wants in this area, not only she'll agree, but she could even encourage it more. She could add to it. It's remarkable to me, like to the Rebbe, everyone is a potential ally. And we've seen this in so many letters in the past 2 weeks. The Rebbe is always networking, always reaching out to people, always trying to find common ground. And even here, like, here's this complaining mom. What's the worst nightmare, right? Oh, no, one of the moms is a Jewish mother, is complaining. Who needs it? And the Rebbe's like, hold on a second. She's got a point. And you know what? Let's grant her point, because it's a good point. And then not only will she agree, see, there's like 3 levels. Right now she's annoyed with him being religious. Okay, but not only will she not be annoyed, she could even agree. That's like the second level. But then there's even like a higher level. She could actually push him to be even more religious. See, the Rebbe's always going for that gold. Like, what are you talking about? That we should settle that the mother should just stop being annoyed that he's so religious? No. We're going to get the mother on board that she should encourage him to become even more religious. We just have to, we have to take care of her. And she has a good point. This is something that we're happy to grant her. Okay. Moving right along. Bavade lameiser leforet hamuva bekama mekemes betera hakdesha chiluk de tefeach ve'tefeach hamanas lat piach. Okay. The Rebbe says, I'm sure I don't have to explain to you the difference between what the Torah calls something that's wet and something that's wet enough to make other things wet. I'm not going to get into a whole discussion of the contexts where this makes a difference, but there are various different situations in Jewish law where this is pertinent. A lot of it has to do with ritual purity and impurity in imparting the ritual impurity. But the point is there's a difference between something that's wet, like a person's hand, let's say, that's just merely damp, or wet enough that if he touches something else, then the thing that he touches now becomes wet. So that's the expression right there. Tefeach almanas lat piach. V'keven shetafkid kol meira b'Yisrael. Filo zeh shebechetzenius einem alamed limudei kodesh. Now, the job of every Jewish teacher, the Rebbe says in parentheses, even a teacher who does not overtly teach anything Jewish, meaning even secular studies teachers, but how much more so someone who is teaching our Torah of life, and that seems to be the case here, that this teacher is teaching Torah. And it's just an interesting point. Again, there's nothing secular in a Jew's life in the Rebbe's worldview. And by the way, there's a letter a couple of nights from now where the Rebbe is writing to somebody who's teaching agriculture. And the Rebbe is saying to him that, even agriculture goes into the category of what King Solomon referred to as know him, meaning God, in all of your ways. So for the Rebbe, there's really nothing secular. Everything is ultimately an opportunity either to directly promote religious observance or at least indirectly. Or like we saw, what was that? Was that last night? The letter to Livne, to the politician. He was looking to make some changes in the government, and the Rebbe was telling him, it's a perfect opportunity to introduce some spiritual changes, some spiritual improvements. And maybe this is the whole point why, by divine providence, you're in the position you're in. In other words, every capacity of influence that a Jew is in order to promote Hashem's ultimate desire. That's without exception. So the Rebbe says every teacher, even if he's not teaching Torah, but especially if he's actually teaching Torah, has to be an influence. Latbiachas talmidov, he has to be moist enough, meaning with good holy stuff. So it's not just he's got the juice, but he's able to transmit it to others. Muvan shehut tzarich liyes tefech amanas latbiach ba'esan hanyonim shetzarich lahachdir behatalmidim. So those matters that you have to inculcate into the students, those matters have to be things that you have, and you have them in such a way where it's contagious. That not only you have it, but you have it in such a way that it's overflowing, and it affects that the students pick it up as well. And this includes, in general, two main aspects. There's two qualities that Rebbe says to this teacher that you need to personify, and personify so strongly that your students will automatically pick it up just by being in your proximity. What are those two qualities? Yiraseh v'chachmaseh. Awe of God and Hashem's wisdom. Yira is awe or fear. Chachma is his wisdom. Chachma mitas chachmaseh retzeni shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And what does it mean? Wisdom, the real wisdom, the wisdom and will of God that is revealed in His Torah. And the order is important. It has to be in the order where the awe of God precedes the wisdom, the knowledge of God's wisdom. It's an important concept here. It speaks about it in Pirkei Avos, that the fear of God has to come before the wisdom, and we have to have both. But it can't just be scholarship. It can't just be intellectual acumen. It has to be the pursuit of the knowledge of God's wisdom, predicated and built upon a strong foundation of the awe of God. V'hanimshol muvan. So the lesson here is obvious. What I'm telling you, nothing stands in the way of will. I don't know the background. I don't know the context. I didn't see this person's letter. When the Rebbe says nothing stands in the way of will, the Rebbe is basically telling somebody that they're about to have a big breakthrough, but that they're going to need to devote themselves to this next phase of their development. So basically, the guy wrote to the Rebbe, I don't know what else he mentioned. He enclosed that letter from the complaining mother. The Rebbe deals with the mother's complaint, and then the Rebbe says to this guy, you're going to really need to step up in matters of Yiras Hashem and Chochmah. Chochmah seiratzeni shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Torah. But Yira first, and then Chochmah. You're going to have to be a paragon of a God-fearing Jew, and as well as a knowledgeable Jew, a Torah scholar, in such a way that these qualities will become apparent in the students who you are teaching. Betach yedei mishleishes hashiurim the chumash tilim tanya hayeduim. Certainly, you know about the 3 daily study cycles of Chumash, Tilim, Tanya, which are well known, which were established by the Rebbe's Rebbe, by the Frierdiker Rebbe. We refer to it as Chitas, Chumash, Tilim, Tanya. We go through the entire Chumash once a year by learning 1 aliyah every day. By the way, we're starting Vayikra today. Have fun. We do the entire Tanya once a year by starting from the title page on Yud Tes Kislev. We're in the middle of Perek Lamed Zayin right now. And we do Tehillim on a monthly basis. So today was Chavav, finished Kuf Yud Tes, the longest kapitel. And tomorrow's Chav Zayin. So we'll start with Kuf Chav. We finish it every month. And then there's also Shabbos Mavorchim Tillim, where you say the whole Tillim in one sitting. So then we end up saying the whole Tillim twice a month, really. Okay, anyways, the Rebbe tells this teacher to start doing Chitas. Val kol ponim yishmer aleim mikanu lahaba. And at the very least, you should start keeping it from now on. Meaning, it's kind of like implying you should have been doing it. It would be nice to hear that you're already doing it. Okay, but if you're not yet doing it, let's get started. All right. Bevrachel v'suras tevis b'chol ha'omer, with a blessing for that you should report good tidings in everything mentioned. And that's our letter tonight. We will see you tomorrow night for letter number 17.